Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to Wobble Enjoy Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. 3 out of 8 in round 1 in total. Round 2 is upon us, and it's the first fair income full round Thursday to Sunday 8-match weekend for 2024. Let's get stuck into the A-Side Tips show. Round 2 begins from Suncorp Stadium on Thursday Night Football. The Brisbane Broncos host the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Both these clubs participated in the Las Vegas games. The Broncos are favourites at $1.38, whereas the South Sydney Rabbitohs are outsiders at $3.07. This will be the 49th match between the two clubs, and it is 32-15 with one draw thrown in there in favour of the Brisbane Broncos. Since 2021, 5 of the past 7 games have been decided by 13 plus. So there are usually a lot of points, but it's usually one-way traffic when it comes to these games. These two sides met last season on 2 separate occasions, one up at the sunny coast, the other one at Suncorp. The Rabbitohs put the Cleaners through pretty much a close to C-string side for the Brisbane Broncos off the top of the dome. And then up at the Sunshine Coast, while the Rabbitohs scored 20 points of their own, the Rabbitohs defence weren't able to hold out a much stronger unit that night up at the sunny coast, where they lost to the tune of 36 points to 20. Since 2018, at the venue, Suncorp, there has been a 6-game win-loss pattern. Win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. And it's due to fall down on the Brisbane Broncos this Thursday night. Let's get stuck into the team list, and there's not too many changes for either side, who again are going to be taking on each other, who they were in Las Vegas last weekend, and the same can be said for the other 2 teams as well that played at Allegiant Stadium just a week or so ago. So for the Brisbane Broncos, Corey Jensen and Marty Tapa'u swap. So Jensen starts and Tapa'u will come off from the bench. Brendan Piakura has recovered from his HIA, but other than that, it's very much still the same 1-17, except just for that swap with Jensen and Tapa'u. And then with the South Sydney Rabbitohs, the back line is unchanged, and Tallis Duncan comes in for Jai Arrow, who I believe has done a rotator cuff. Maybe he'll only be out for 5 weeks, but it's also looking like that if he needs surgery, his season may already be done. So fingers crossed and touch wood for Jai Arrow that he doesn't miss the entire season. Therefore, the other new face on the bench, Shaq Mitchell, with jersey number 16 on his back, will play for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The South Sydney Rabbitohs, they have always had this nous for scoring points at will. They can score the dream try to win the game for the past couple of seasons now. But the defence was not there. The Broncos' defence was against the Sydney Roosters. It may look like not a blowout, but it may look like the Broncos really did get done in by the Sydney Roosters. But I think the Broncos' defence is a lot sterner, made of a lot more sterner stuff than the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I mean, who the hell am I, right? Reece Walsh is probably going to want to go out there and throw 5 cutout passes, and then, you know, Tony Staggs and Selwyn Cobber are going to want to go for a flick pass and then a chip over the top sort of a thing. But I don't know, I guess my opinion would be is that the Broncos should be of the mindset where if they win by 3-0, they can do it. I think their focus should just purely be on their defense, and then the attack will come, sort of thing. And that can be said for a lot of teams, but I just think maybe this weekend just maybe focus primarily on defense. But you watch Reece Walsh do what he does, Reece Walsh was incredible in that game up at Allegiant Stadium. In the battle of Walsh versus Latrell Mitchell in this game is worth the price for admission alone. So we're going to see some wild things in this game. I'm going to tip the Brisbane Broncos to win. 5 of the past 7 games decided by 13 plus. I am tempted to say 13 plus on the Brisbane Broncos just because South Sydney's defense is rather leaky, but I'm going to go the Brisbane Broncos to win 1-12. We move into Friday night footy. There are 2 games, and game number 1 is from PointsBet Stadium. We are at that venue for the first time in 2024. The Sharks versus the Bulldogs. The Sharks are $1.31. The Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs are $3.47. Special milestone in this game, a few of them actually, but the biggest one is that this will be the 100th Sharks versus Bulldogs match in NRL history. The Bulldogs have the overall head-to-head record at 56-41. However, the Sharks have won 7 games in a row versus Canterbury Bankstown, and they have won 13 of 15 games since the year 2015. The last time the Bulldogs defeated the Sharks full stop was in 2021, but they have not won at Shark Park since the year 2011. So it's the blue, black and white that have dominated the blue and white for the better part of a decade, almost a decade now. Going into the team lists now, not too much change for the Cronulla Sharks. As a matter of fact, no changes at all, except, Dale Finucane. He plays his 250th first grade game. Congratulations to him. And we've also got Cameron McInnes, who plays his 50th club game for the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. We're going into the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, and this could be anything. So Josh Shadow-Carr, he has been omitted due to the shoulder complaint he had, and it's Connor Tracy who's going to be playing out on the wings. So Blake Taaffe given a chance. A lot of people are calling for Connor Tracy to just immediately slide into fullback, but Connor Tracy, his first appearance for the Bulldogs, up against his old club as well on Friday night footy. Burton and Hutchison remain as the halves pairing. The back row that started last week is the same this week, and the interchange is exactly the same. So really only the one big change is that Fox is out and Connor Tracy is in. Sharks' supremely impressive defensive display against the Warriors in Auckland. For the Bulldogs, they didn't give up, but it just didn't connect for them, unfortunately, in that first half in particularly. They just could not hold on to that pill, so they'll spray some magic grip on their palms on Friday night. Still don't take them lightly. They're still going to be a tough team to beat if they're not beating themselves like they did for the first half or the first 60 minutes of last weekend. So there are a few positives for Bulldogs fans to take out of it, but with what the Sharks did last weekend, immense. So I'm going to go Sharks, and because it's a couple of milestones for Dale Finucane and Cameron McInnes, and they're not favourite sons, I don't think. They've only been there a couple of seasons or a few seasons now, but I think they'll get around it. I think the Sharks can win this game by 13 plus. In arguably the game of the round and a matchup that has become a rivalry over the past couple of years for sure and certain these days, it's the Western Sydney Derby, the Panthers versus the Parramatta Eels. The Panthers are $1.39, the Eels are $3.03. This will be the 110th match between the two rivals, and it is Parramatta who leads 62-46 with one draw thrown in there as well. Parramatta Eels did the double on the Panthers last year, winning both home and away from home, and especially that away game out at Bluebet Stadium, and this game is happening at Bluebet Stadium this Friday night. It just sort of reiterated to themselves that, like, oi, we can do this. Like, it really should have given them that extra bit of oomph to believe in themselves, man. Like, they can do this. just got to get, iron out those creases with consistency and the whatnot. So let's go into the team lists for both these sides. So it looks like that Scott Sorensen comes in, and he starts with jersey number 11 on his back. That pushes Luke Garner back to the bench. And then the interchange is Luke, Smith, Henry, and Garner. So that's pretty much it. So I think that moves Matt Eisenhuth back to the reserves list. Going into the Parramatta Eels now, it's been noted that both Campbell Gillard and Polo to start after Polo started from the bench last weekend. Maybe that's just a little bit of mind games. Maybe it will be Campbell Gillard that starts from the bench, or vice versa. And then the interchange reads Hans Madison, Offahengawi, and Kelma Tuolangi. As a whole, you can't say that Parramatta Eels played bad last weekend, but I think they left so many points out there on the paddock against the Dogs that you can't help but feel a little bit, just a touch underwhelmed by what Parramatta did. Like, I understand that Mitch Moses had a groin complaint and he fought through it to his credit, or nearly to his detriment. Mitch Moses fought through it and he ended up having a few kicks inside that second half. Dylan Brown was then given the main kicking responsibility for a huge portion of that game. And I don't think Dylan Brown did okay. Like, you can say he did good, but there is still a lot more room for improvement, which is a positive. It is an absolute positive, but I just think maybe up against someone like a Melbourne Storm, if the Parramatta Eels played the way they did that day against someone like the Melbourne Storm, maybe they don't get that dub, and it was just the Bulldogs who truly shot themselves in the foot. That's just the sense that I'm getting. That's just my vibe, and that's just what I see. And then the Penrith Panthers, they looked knackered last Friday night. They looked rusty and they looked knackered in round number 1. Back at home at Bluebet Stadium, think it'll be a sellout, and I'm going to go the Penrith Panthers 1-12. I think this is going to be another very much spoken about game between the Panthers and Eels in the aftermath. I think this is going to be a beauty, but I am going to go the Penrith Panthers to win this game 1-12. Now we're into Saturday, and game number 1 on Super Saturday is from GIO Stadium from Canberra for the first time this year. The Raiders are $1.45. They're taking on the West Tigers, who are coming into town, and they are $2.76. This will be the 43rd match between the two. It is the Raiders who have a small lead at 23-19. Since 2016, the Raiders have won 11 out of the 13 encounters that they have had with the West Tigers. The Tigers last won in Canberra in the year 2018. Let's go into the team list news now. So Sebastian Kris returns from suspension. He wears jersey number 4. Albert Hopewadi is out on the wing this weekend. Xavier Savage remains, and it's Nick Kotrick that moves out of the side and has jersey number 18 on his back. Strange and Fogarty remain the halves pairing. The forward pack remains the same. The interchange reads Starling, Gula, Mariota, and Solo. Now, going into the West Tigers, I'm going to read the entire team list because this is the first time that we've seen them in the regular season. First time we've seen them in 2 or 3 weeks. So at fullback, we've got Buller, Staines, and Tupou are the wingers. Toa and Fa'atape are the centres. I think that's Fa'atape's NRL debut. If not, he may have had a match with the Melbourne Storm late last season, but it's definitely his club debut for the West Tigers this Saturday. A lot of hype about this young man as well. Seen a couple of bits and pieces of him too, so interesting to see how he goes. And a young Lachlan Galvin debuts in the NRL at jersey number 6, and he partners Jaden Sullivan in the halves. So an extremely inexperienced, raw halves pairing there for the West Tigers. I don't know almost anything. I don't know anything about Mr. Galvin, but always exciting to see a brand new prospect sprout up out of nowhere. With the forwards, we've got Uto, Ikamanu, Clemmer, and Coruscant in the front row. Papali'i, Bateman, and Seifarth has won that the lock position. There's been a bit of conjecture on whether or not it would be a Fanua Pole or somebody else, but it's Seifarth that has won that lock position. On the interchange, well, Caesar is going to be there this weekend. Aiden Caesar in 14, Fanua Pole 15, 12, and Samuela Fainu in jersey number 17. He was the New South Wales under-19s captain last season. He's a massive thing with a huge amount of potential as well. A couple of unlucky exclusions for the Tigers. Someone like an Asu Kapoa, I think someone who can play really well out there on the edge, but when you've got Papali'i and Bateman, you know, it's just an extra bit of good weight in Kapoa. And Justin Matamua as well. He was the other player that may have snared a lock position this year with the West Tigers. The Canberra Raiders, arguably the most impressive side last weekend against the Newcastle Knights, up there in the Hunter Valley to win 13 plus. No one tipped them. Only diehard, green-eyed fans selected them to pick up the dub on Thursday night. A wild win, man. An absolutely wild win, bro. And I will reiterate, probably for the last time this year, they are the team that I've had the least amount of confidence in. Not because I don't think they're not going to do anything. It's just that I got no idea what the hell they're going to do. They could be 14th or 4th at the end of the season. And man, they went a good way to proving me, who I selected at 14th, very wrong, and 90% of the NRL population as well. Benji Marshall makes his well and truly coaching club debut this weekend as the West Tigers head coach, and it's an okay looking back line. It's a very unproven back line, in particularly in that halves pairing. The forward pack, man, if they all activate well and true, and someone like Alex Seifarth has definitely improved over the past 18 months. The interchange, Aiden Caesar at 14 is a bit of a weird one. Just will Api Coruscant come off for 10 minutes? Will Caesar play in the hooker position, or someone float in and play? Maybe Caesar comes on and young Lachlan Galvin shifts, or Jaden Sullivan shifts into the hooking position. But it's a good looking team on paper. It's just that back line, even though it's got Jareen Buller at fullback, who is a superstar in the making. It's a good side. It's unproven. The element of surprise is right there for the West Tigers. They've been sleeping. Everyone has forgotten about them throughout the excitement of the first week or two of the NRL season. They finally get their chance. They're going to be tough to beat because the past two games between the Raiders and the Tigers have been decided by 4 points or less. They had a hell of a time, the Raiders, beating them twice last season, especially the game out at Campbelltown, if you remember, where it absolutely exploded inside the final 15 minutes of that game, or 10 minutes of that game, where the Tigers came roaring back. I'm going to go the Canberra Raiders. It is at home. Chris, who will be rusty, he's got himself a game this weekend to sort of not repay the faith sort of thing, but I'm looking for a big game from Sebastian Chris. I'm going to go the Canberra Raiders. I'm very weary of the first game adrenaline rush the Tigers are going to have with them this weekend, but I'm going to go the Canberra Raiders to win this game 1-12. The 5:30 game emanates from Queensland Country Bank Stadium. The Cowboys, who are sitting first on the NRL ladder, are hosting the Newcastle Knights. The Cowboys are $1.42. The Newcastle Knights are $2.90. This will be the 45th match between the two clubs, and the overall head-to-head record is even Stevens. It is 22 wins apiece. Since the year 2020, the Cowboys have won 4 of the past 6 matches against the Newcastle Knights. Knights, they have never won at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. They are 0-3. They have not won in Townsville since 2015. Going into the team list news now for the home side first of all, and they are completely unchanged. The North Queensland Cowboys after their 43-18 victory over the Dolphins on Sunday. Now going into the Newcastle Knights team, Anari Tuwala is out. Thomas Jenkins comes in on the wing. He's a Penrith Panthers junior who has made his NRL debut. Played a handful of games. I like the look of Jenkins. Still very green and a lot to work on, but there's something in there in Tom Jenkins where I think maybe he could be a breakout star and could be a decent replacement for the stature and for the leaping capabilities that Dom Young left behind in the Hunter Valley for the Bondi Beaches sort of thing. So I like Thomas Jenkins. Tyson Gamble and Jackson Hastings remain as the halves pairing, and Kai Pearce-Paul starts with jersey number 12 on his back. Dylan Lucas, I suspect, has succumbed to the HIA that he was put through last weekend. He copped a severe knock and copped a busted nose and looked like he did something to his friggin' shoulder. But unfortunately, Dylan Lucas, who didn't have a bad game last weekend, has been omitted. So Kai Pearce-Paul, who was impressive on debut as an English import as well, he was very impressive on debut, man. A hell of a looking thing. The interchange reads Cogger, Daniel Saifidi, Jack Hetherington, and Jed Cartwright, and Will Price is just floating around there in jersey number 19 as well. There's no doubt that the Newcastle Knights should probably take the mantle, unfortunately, of being the most disappointing team of the first round. But that first 20 minutes, though, it was there for them. They were definitely the better side. Their attack was clicking. They just didn't come out of the sheds at halftime. Especially, I don't want to single him out just because he's the biggest name on the team, but Kalen Ponga was definitely found wanting in that second half, and because he's up against his old friggin' team this weekend, I'm sure he's going to go ways to trying to rectify what he did in round one. Of course, the entire Newcastle Knights outfit, not taking this team lightly, but also I can't help but agree with another podcast that I've heard over the past 24 hours. The forward pack from the Knights just didn't have that rocket in them that they had in the second half of last season. They weren't as angry or as intimidating as what they were last year. North Queensland Cowboys, though, whoa, man. Whoa, a seriously quick outfit that were flinging it from west to east sort of thing, and they were running it on the last plays. They were offloading. It has been something that I've been wanting to see for years, something I've been calling for years, for more of an offloading style of game. If they're going to be a team that are going to outscore you 30-26, then Cowboys fans, hold on friggin' tight, man, because the only nitpick that I will take out of that game is the 18 points. The Dolphins had their first opportunity inside the red zone. They scored. Their second opportunity, they scored. The third opportunity was off a ricochet kick, and Hannah went and passed, and it was ended up in a runaway try of about 70 meters sort of thing. But there were two tries in that first half where just the goal line defense, man, it really needed to tighten up. So that's the only nitpick that I give the North Queensland Cowboys. I'm sure that that's something that they already know and are disappointed about sort of thing as well. But the likes of Valentine Holmes, man, I was sitting in that stadium, and every time he took a carry, you saw how combustible and just, he was just this wild pinball that had so much weight and power and acceleration behind him. The Dolphins couldn't stop him. I'm not too sure what his post-contact meters would be like, but Val Holmes, man, was seriously strong. And the back five, there's been another podcast that I've heard as well where they've sort of indicated that the Cowboys, the most underrated team, backline in the NRL. I've always had that viewpoint, and someone like Kyle Fell has had those get out of jail running meters in him for a few seasons now, man. He is really important to us, and he did it again this past weekend. Dearden and Townsend, they linked well. Scott Drinkwater as well had a good game, but Hylam Lukey and Jeremiah Nene, huge for us. And then the interchange bench came on and did their thing, but really it was the edge forwards and it was the entire back line that just absolutely sliced the Dolphins into ribbons this past weekend. Yeah, not taking anything away from Jordan McLean and Taumalolo, but I really did think that it was Lukey and Nane, and then it was the back line that just absolutely destroyed it for the Dolphins. So of course I'm going to tip the Cowboys 13 plus, but I am worried about the bounce back factor of the Newcastle Knights, man. They lost their first round at home. They'd be embarrassed about it. They'd be seething about it, and they're going to be wanting to come up and rectify things. And they're very capable of doing so, man. So Cowboys, they got to not take them lightly, respect them. Yeah, they're going to win this game by 13 plus. Go Cowboys. The final game on Super Saturday is from Amy Park. Storm versus the Warriors. The Storm are $1.41. The Warriors are $2.93. This is the 51st match between the Storm and the Warriors. The Storm dominate 32-16 with 2 draws thrown in there as well. The Warriors, they have not defeated Melbourne since 2015. They have not won at Amy Park since 2014. It is approximately 14 games in a row that they have lost against the Melbourne Storm. It is Cowboys and Storm areas of 2015 through to 2021 areas. Warriors fans must be sick of it. I can empathise, sympathise. I can relate to how Warriors fans must be feeling when they take on the Melbourne Storm, for sure. So we go into the team list now. And for the Melbourne Storm, Jonah Pezzett remains at 5'8", so Cameron Munster still not named. In the forward pack, that's been unchanged. Christian Welch actually starts off the bench in jersey 15, and Tyron Wishart, Welch and Alec McDonald, the interchange as well, with young Sean Bloor and Sua Fa'alongo on the reserves list. And then for the New Zealand Warriors, Tane Tuaipiki is still at fullback, CNK still a couple of weeks away, but the back line is unchanged. So too is the forward pack, and so too is the interchange. So no changes there at all for the New Zealand Warriors, who had the fastest start, the most dangerous start of anybody in the NRL inside that first 20 minutes. And whether it was the Sharks that mentally got on top and then just absolutely took the Warriors by surprise, or maybe the Warriors gassed themselves inside that first 20 minutes. It was a disappointing result in the end for sure, but a very impressive patch for the New Zealand Warriors. And for the Melbourne Storm, you tell yourself all off season, you've got to tip in round 1, it does not matter. But I just thought Nelson Asofa-Solomona, man, we saw on a handful of occasions, maybe a dozen occasions last season, where when Nuss went off, the Storm went down a couple of gears, man. And without Munster, I just thought this actually well and truly might be it. And it's not me death riding the Storm. I just thought it would be it. But luck's a fortune sort of a thing, but you make your own luck as well. The Panthers, they were rusty and knackered sort of thing. They weren't their best version of themselves. Neither were the Storm for that matter as well. That entire game was a very, very scrappy affair, man. A really ordinary match. But the Storm, bro, they just stuck in for Craig Bellamy and themselves, man. And man, I talked about the Sharks before about having a great defensive display. I don't think there was a better defensive display in round 1 than the one that the Storm put in against the Penrith Panthers last Friday night. There is a piece of me that thinks the Warriors can do this. I think this is going to be a spicy affair. With all the off-season talk and arguing about, hey, Storm, do you want to come over for Anzac Day? Storm goes, no. I think this could be a bit of a spicy affair this Saturday night. And the Warriors, they definitely got the team to do it. The value is there for the New Zealand Warriors as well. Are the Storm really going to go 2-0 without Nelson Asofa-Solomona and Cameron Munster? And you got the Warriors coming into town, man. The Warriors, they are going to throw a hell of a lot more at the Melbourne Storm than what the Penrith Panthers did last weekend. But the confidence that is going to be injected into them because of that effort last weekend, it could be massive, man. You talk about hoodoos in round one. The Storm have definitely got the hammer on the throat of the Warriors, man, since 2015. So I'm going to go the Melbourne Storm 1-12. And the final two games of round number 2. The first game, 4 Pines Park, Manly versus the Roosters. On Sportsbet, Easts are $1.82. Manly are $2.02. This will be game 141 in the history between these two clubs. And it is Manly who leads 87-51 with 2 draws thrown in there as well. But since 2020, the Roosters have won 4 of the past 7 encounters between the Manly Sea Eagles and themselves. For the team list news now for the Manly Sea Eagles, Tommy Talau comes in for Jason Saab, who is going to be missing up to 6 weeks with a hamstring injury. But besides that, I reckon that's just about it for the Manly Sea Eagles. And then for the Sydney Roosters, young power guard drops out, and young Dominic Young comes in to make his Roosters debut. Also coming in, massive inclusion, is Jared Warrior-Hargreaves. He will start with jersey number 8 on his back. And the interchange reads Sandon Smith, Nofahu White, Nat Butcher, and Terrell May. It's the hardest game of the round to pick. Both of these sides are the victors from Las Vegas as well. The Manly Sea Eagles, man, I don't think somehow that there is going to be as many opportunities to score points against the Sydney Roosters outfit, who looked very vicious. They looked like the Bondi Wall from 2018, 2019, 2020, reincarnated from round number 1. But that was out there at Allegiant Stadium. I find this game really difficult to tip, but I'm going to lean in the way of the eastern suburbs to travel to Manly and get the dub 1-12. And the final game of round number 2 emanates from KO Stadium, Dolphins versus the Dragons. Sunday 6:15, and on Sportsbet, the Dragons have now become the favourites at $1.82, and it's the Dolphins who are $2.02 themselves. This will be the third meeting between the two clubs, and it is even Stevens at 1 win apiece. A couple of changes for the Dolphins. Jake Avarillo makes his club debut this weekend. Tessie New either injured or dropped. Isaiah Katoa comes in at halfback. Sean O'Sullivan, he has been dropped. Ewan Aitken comes in. Unfortunately, Connolly Lemuelu did his knee this past weekend, man, dislocated knee, so he's going to be out for a couple of months. Max Plath also comes in the lock position as well, and the interchange is Kerr, Kenny Bromwich, Mark Nichols, and Jared Wallace. And I was just reading there that Max Plath is coming in for Ray Stone, who unfortunately succumbed to a concussion as well over the weekend. And then going into the Dragons, from 1 down through to 7, they are unchanged. The forward pack, you've got Blake Laurie, who does come back for his first game of 2024. And then the interchange, Mal Heisen, Michael Molo, Raymond Vitale Mariner, and Luciano Leilua has been named with jersey number 17 on his back. He is going to be chomping at the bit to seek and destroy this weekend. For the Dolphins, man, I don't even know what to say, bro. They looked like it was just going to happen for him, and they've looked like that all preseason. They've looked like a team that look way too confident in things that are just going to start clicking for them. And their forward pack got dominated by the Cowboys this past weekend, and they struggled. This full-strength Dolphins side struggled with a C-string Gold Coast Titans a couple of weeks ago as well, man. There's just, I don't know what it is, but there's something going on up there at the Dolphins that, I don't know, man, they're not firing on all cylinders just yet. Maybe it was just because their first year in the competition was just way too big. It was just so much that maybe they are a little bit flat to start the season, and maybe they will build nicely when the second half of the year starts, but they need to do it a little bit quicker than that for sure. And for the St. George Illawarra Dragons, like, I didn't tip them for the wooden spoon, but fair dinkum, like, throw it all out, man. Like, the Dragons, they look insane. Shane Flanagan has reminded this team what the red V stands for, bro. and this Dragons side finished 15th or second last season. The Warriors and the Cowboys in years prior did, and then they finished in the top 4 the year after. If this happens again for the St. George Illawarra Dragons, like, every NRL club is going to want to finish 15th this year or second last this season, man. Like, what is going on when it comes to the teams who finish second last one year and then the next year they look like they're on the warpath big time, man? Because that's what's happening. I know it's only round 1, but that's what's happening. That's what it looks like with the St. George Illawarra Dragons, man. They've got a new life. They look like that Shane Flanagan has given them the right proper boot up the arse in the right way, in the best way possible, bro. They're a really, excuse the pun, they're a really fiery, angry, aggressive side, man. And happy to see Zach Lomax and Tyrell Sloan carve it up this past weekend. It's at KO Stadium, their spiritual home. I do take a little bit into that for the Dolphins. Isaiah Katoa was there for 3/4 of the year last season and held his own very, very well. So Sean O'Sullivan clearly did not do his job properly this past weekend, and Isaiah Katoa, I think he did all right this past weekend. Jake Averillo instead of Tessie New is a fair old replacement, but it is that back row of an Aitken and a Plath that they might get overawed, or they might get overpowered by a Sewer, Eisenhuth and Jack DeBellin. And just quietly, Jaden Sewer, Tom Eisenhuth, they've found some of that old mongrel and form into them, man. So keen to see how they continue on for the rest of the season, bro. Hard tip this one. It's telling me to go the Dragons, but there's just something telling me that the Dolphins, they surprised everyone last year for 3/4 of the year, and I don't know, there's just something telling me that maybe they might be able to get the job done, but I'm going to kind of play it safe and I'm going to go the Dragons. If you told me 2 weeks ago I was going to pick the Dragons in this game, 1-12, I would have told you, I would have asked you what the hell have I done, what's going on, sort of thing. But I'm going to go the Dragons to win this game 1-12, but I'm not entirely confident. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in. Thank you very much for the support. I hope you enjoyed the A-Side Tip Show again, and I'll see you next week for another episode. Thank you kindly. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios. Can I say thank you any more times like fair dinkum? Adios.